Good afternoon, and sorry for the delay. I'm Robert White, council member at large and chair of the Committee on Housing. Today is Tuesday, June 24th, 2025, and the time is 12:41 p.m. I'm calling to order this additional meeting of the committee to review the report and recommendations of the Committee on Housing on the fiscal year 2026 budget for agencies under its purview and the Committee on Housing staff appointments, second resolution of 2025. I recognize that we have a quorum consisting of myself, Ward 3 Councilmember Matt Fruman, Ward 1 Councilmember Brianne Nadeau, and Ward 2 Councilmember Brooke Pinto. I think that's it. Yep. Like, see anybody else? Each year, the council conducts detailed oversight to evaluate how DC's agencies are performing. First, we examine how the agencies under our committees are doing and listen to feedback from residents about their experiences with government services. Then, the mayor proposes a budget outlining her priorities for the upcoming year. The council reviews this proposal carefully to decide whether to support her ideas or suggest changes. During this phase, residents play an important role by reviewing the mayor's proposal and offering feedback and suggested improvements to the council. After considering that input, committees finalize their funding decisions and vote on them before sending recommendations to the full council for consideration. Today, we've reached a point where this committee will discuss and vote on its recommendations to the full council. All council members and staff should have received draft materials from the committee yesterday in preparation for today's discussion. And I want to recognize that we have been joined by my at-large colleague, Anita Bonds. This year's budget saw significant changes, some welcomed, some deserving of more scrutiny. And as I've said throughout the budget season, this year has been difficult. Congress recklessly overturned parts of our fiscal year 25 budget right in the middle of the fiscal year, and we received the mayor's fiscal year 26 proposal almost 2 months late, which forced all of us, the council, the budget office, our staff, and the community at large to work under an accelerated timeline. The truth is, the budget didn't grow this year, or at least not enough. And in a year like this, every dollar matters even more. People are watching how we spend our limited resources, and many are telling us they don't feel like we're investing in the things that actually help them stay housed, stay stable, or move forward. That frustration and concern is real, and it's valid. Our office hears it all the time. Parents trying to stretch their paychecks just to cover rent, returning citizens trying to find stable ground, tenants who've tried to call every agency they can think of and are still looking for help. People feel like they're doing everything right, but the system isn't working for them. That's why this committee approached the budget with a clear focus: to stabilize what's working, fix what's broken, and fund what matters most to residents, even within tight fiscal limits. First, I'm happy to see the mayor's budget proposal restores the Housing Production Trust Fund to the full funding at $100 million, and we're going to maintain that investment. The committee's budget proposal dedicates 30% of the Housing Production Trust Fund dollars to preservation, restores $1 million to the Acquisition and Critical Repair Fund, and invests in the Small Buildings Program to help small landlords keep their units in good repair. New construction is vital, but preservation stretches public dollars further and delivers results faster. And amid these budget constraints, we have to be smart and spend wisely. At least 87% of the city's rental units were built before 1978, making them at high risk for redevelopment and displacement. So as the cost of new development rises and we work to bring investments back to the city, we can lower costs for residents and keep people in their homes and neighborhoods by preserving the housing we already have. We've seen before that digging out of a deficit can displace many longtime residents. My own family and many others were swept out of DC during the last budget deficit. I don't want that to happen again, and preservation is one of our best and most cost-effective tools to keep people in their homes as we work through this, but it has not been a high enough priority for the city. We're going to change that. To support home ownership, we're increasing funding for the Home Purchase Assistance Program, or HPAP, by more than $2 million. We're also proposing to cut the lottery system and instead distribute funding on a rolling basis, streamline the process by giving applicants at least 2 years of eligibility after completing housing counseling, improve reporting and transparency, and allow public transit employees to benefit from the government employer-assisted housing program. These changes will improve accessibility, stability, and equity for prospective homebuyers. Finally, we're adding $200,000 to the Office of the Tenant Advocate's Emergency Housing Assistance Program to help tenants at risk of homelessness due to building closures or evictions. We're also giving more financial and operational flexibility to the Office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions and advisory neighborhood and to the advisory neighborhood commissions themselves. Before I open the floor to discussion on the report, I want to acknowledge the members of my staff for their hard work. I want to recognize our legislative director and committee director, Jaya Pillai, who, although new to this role, has really hit the ground running and helped move our team incredibly forward. Our veteran, Sean Cuddihigh, deputy committee director, who has been a steady hand helping us maneuver through this budget and get all of our details right. Francesca Bryce, who is in second or third budget? Second budget, operating like a pro. Kate Conquest, our legislative assistant, who has been incredibly hands-on on almost every detail of the budget. Maurice Cates, Jakayla Davis, and Christian Whisker, who have recently joined our team and were lucky enough to join right smack dab in the middle of our budget, but have showed no fear in the face of these timelines. And I've been really grateful to have their hard work and experience that I'll mention in a couple of minutes when we do our next resolution. But I really want to thank them just for a phenomenal amount of work. I also want to thank the folks without whom we could not have gotten this budget done. Jen Budoff, our budget director. Jen's leadership is valuable, steadfast, expert, and precise. Year after year, we appreciate her guidance throughout the budget process, and we are so lucky to have her. Joe Wolf, who has been our budget analyst since last year. My staff wanted me to say, "We did it, Joe." And yes, we did. Thanks to you and your hard work, dedication, and answering all 1,000 of our office's emails, calls, and Teams messages. Really appreciate your work, your attention to detail, and thoughtful budget analysis that allowed us to get to this point. We had a vision, and you showed us how to execute it. So thank you so much. And of course, Ann Phelps, our A-team, our budget counsel and chief of staff for the budget office, and your honesty, kindness, hardworking nature, and genuine support and love for this work shine through in everything you do every single year. I just love being able to work with you. You make this building better just by being you. So thank you so much. In our general counsel's office, I want to specifically thank Nicole Streeter, our general counsel, whose guidance my team and I call upon regularly, and whose team at the office of the general counsel keeps us all on track. And Valerie Nadal, the committee's assistant general counsel, who we have had the pleasure of working with many years now, and whose thoughtful feedback and steady presence always make our legislation and our team better. And from the OCFO's office, I'd also like to thank Jamie Lantian, the fiscal analyst assigned to our committee. Jamie's always quick to respond, thoughtful, and his approach a genuine pleasure to work with, even when the to-do lists get long, as they often do. So we value Jamie's calm and steady energy. So with that, is there any discussion on the committee on housing? I'm sorry, on the, oh, there we go. Is there any discussion on the report and recommendations of the Committee on Housing on the fiscal year 2025 budget for agencies under its purview? Councilmember Bonds.
Thank you very, very much, and thanks to your chairmanship of this very important committee. I just wanted to note a couple of things that I am very supportive of, and that is your transfer out of 300,000 to the Committee on Human Services. It is for youth workforce grants. And as someone who is very concerned about the workforce proposals that we have in the District of Columbia, I can say I support workforce wherever it appears in the budget. So I want you to know that I'm very supportive of that. There are a couple of other objectives that you mentioned, like maintaining the $100 million investment in the Housing Production Trust Fund. You say it's going to ensure continued production of deeply affordable housing for low and moderate income district residents. And I say kudos to that. And then the investment in small buildings program to help small landlords to keep their buildings in a good state of repairs. So I want to applaud you for that. And then in the promotion of home ownership and increasing the funding for the home purchase assistance program we call HPAP by $2 million over the mayor's proposal. And this will give more individuals, residents of the district, an opportunity to lay down their decisions as to where they're going to live. And most importantly, it will give us additional opportunities for revenue through the taxes that they will pay as new homeowners. So I'm really happy about that. Then I wanted to commend you on the recommendation that the Housing Authority immediately prioritize the comprehensive public reporting system for the repair backlog across its entire portfolio, including the occupied public housing units. I think that's very, very important and can be a life changer in our community. And then I also appreciate that you're recommending that the authority work with the executive and the council to identify more capital funding so that the critical infrastructure and safety upgrades can take place in our traditional public housing. Public housing is originally thought to be housing of last resort, but it's become a way of living in many urban areas and particularly our community. So I say we got to face up to it. If not for public housing, where would people go? And we have to make it more attractive, and we have to make sure it's very safe and secure. So I appreciate that. And then for the Department of Housing and Community Development, you have recommended that the agency evaluate potential barriers in the application process and take immediate steps to ensure that housing programs are equally serving some of our tend to be kind of forgotten or left out communities, particularly with our, I think about our Black homeowners strike force that we had and how significant it was. Let's see if we can't get more action from that proposal. And then you recommended the improving the rent registry implementation through stakeholder collaboration and accessibility support. And you also recommend improving program transparency and communications for all homeowner assistance initiatives. Thank you very much for that. And then finally, you want the DHCD to conduct a comprehensive review of the 9% low-income housing tax credit, LIHTC as we call it, the application, the award, and the underwriting process to identify the root causes behind the return of the 3.1 million in federal credits and to provide a report with corrective action. So I'm hoping that can happen. And for my friends at the Office of Tenant Advocate, you have recommended that the office with DHCD implement a standardized process for public reporting on buildings' conditions and repair complaints patterns with a focus on identifying chronic violators. I think that's excellent, and we should be doing that. And also OTA, increase outreach to underserved tenant populations by expanding its partnerships beyond government service centers to include trusted community-based institutions and informal tenant groups. And then finally, the committee does recommend that OTA finalize and submit its long-awaited legislative proposal addressing utility building practices in multifamily rentals. And so I'm hoping that will reveal how we can reduce utility costs, not just in rentals, but hopefully it'll give us enough information. We'll be able to look at condominiums and cooperatives, and when your committee decides it's going to take on HBOs, okay, so that we can really look at the homeowners associations that are very similar in many ways. So thank you very much. I just wanted to reiterate some of the good work that you are proposing and doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Bonds, and thank you for your continued partnership and recommendations. I really value having you on this committee. Councilmember Nadeau.
Thank you so much, Chairman White. It's wonderful to be back here on the Housing Committee for this budget cycle. We know this budget comes at a critical time for housing in the district. Families around the city are facing through-the-roof housing costs, federal worker job losses, and reduced support for family programs at the federal level. So it's more important than ever we keep our commitment to affordable and available housing for all. This committee has secured an additional $2 million for the Home Purchase Assistance Program and has made important changes to the program, including ending the lottery format and expanding public reporting requirements so we can do better oversight of the program. This will ensure the program can benefit even more families and that none slip through the cracks due to confusing program administration. And thank you, Chairman, for including my Home Purchase Assistance for Transit Workers Amendment Act, which allows public transit employees to benefit from the district government's employer-assisted housing program. The committee budget report recommendations also contain a critical increase to the Emergency Housing Assistance Program. As a ward council member, I know how important this program is and how beneficial it will be that we can help more families, and it's timely. We've had more floods, fires, and other emergency displacements over the past year than I can remember in any other year in my time at the council. I'm also glad to see the committee's focus on oversight of the Housing Authority's role with the voucher program. In my previous role as chair of the Committee on Human Services, I spent many years working to improve the program, and it's great to see you continuing this important work to expand housing. Notably, the committee was able to maintain the $100 million for the Housing Production Trust Fund, which is one of our most significant tools to create affordable housing, and restore $1 million for the Housing Preservation Fund, which is critical for maintaining the housing that we have. However, I do want to note a specific concern about the proposed requirement that 30% of the trust fund be spent on preservation. The subtitle has a very narrow definition of preservation that's not in line with what's considered preservation, considered a preservation project for the purposes of Housing Production Trust Fund. Many of those projects end up adding new housing as well. My concern is the focus on habitability of individual units for tenants, while critically important, is better suited to a different program or fund, and that dedicating the trust fund in this way could be seen as cutting it without really cutting it. If this really is an urgent need, I think it's better for us to set aside funds than statutorily change the Housing Production Trust Fund. I do agree it's important we protect and maintain our existing affordable housing stock, but last year, 100% of the trust fund went towards stabilizing buildings with arrearages, with none of the funding supporting production as it was supposed to. Prioritizing preservation doesn't seem to be the trust fund's problem right now. In fact, it's very much the opposite. At a time when there's been so much discussion about slowing housing construction, including in this committee, I want to ensure that we're adequately supporting new production to address our affordability challenges in the district. Chairman, your committee report demonstrates diligent oversight from you and your team. Congratulations on your hard work. Thank you for your leadership. And I look forward to supporting the measure before us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Nadeau, and thank you for your work on this committee. I will mention that preservation doesn't usually get the spotlight because there's no ribbon cutting, there's no groundbreaking. It's just not as sexy. But since 2000, DC has seen the stock of low-cost rentals cut in half from about 70,600 units to 34,500. 773 buildings classified as naturally occurring affordable housing. Essentially over 95% of these buildings were built before 1978, so about 50 years older. And which means we just have a rapidly aging affordable housing stock. The current preservation language allows us to give more money to things like back rent, but I'm very interested in making sure people can live in dignified buildings without their rents increasing. So when critical repairs need to be made, we want to, or when buildings become dilapidated, we want to make sure that building owners can do those infrastructure or capital improvements and keep rents low, which is why we have the narrow definition. But I'm happy to work with you on that language between now and when we move to the full council, and appreciate the work that you've done here.
Thank you. It seems like we share the same goal, just maybe a different opinion on how to get there. So I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pinto.
Thank you, Chairman White. I want to add my thanks to you and your whole team and the budget office for all of the hard work that went into especially this year's budget, and a lot of tough decisions needed to be made. And we were particularly concerned at a lot of the budget changes proposed when we initially received the budget that affect our most vulnerable residents. We saw in the mayor's budget proposal a decrease in funding for ERAP, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and I was pleased to see an increase of $5.5 million in funding for families and an increase of $14.9 million for the general fund for the homeless services continuum. While I was hoping that there would be more room in the budget for an increase in more permanent supportive housing, I'm very appreciative that the committee retained and maintained last year's funding. I also appreciate the committee sharing its concerns regarding the proposed consolidation of MORCA into the executive office. I share the committee's concerns and want to ensure that all existing resources continue to be focused towards returning citizens where they need them, especially to set them up for sustainable success when they come home. I'm thankful for your hard work to find additional funding for the home purchase assistance HPAP program, as well as adding $2 million to the acquisition critical repairs funds for the Department of Housing and Community Development that was previously zeroed out. And thank you for retaining the language around the housing in downtown program, which I think has been very successful and is very important. I appreciate that you all have prioritized holding a hearing on the Rental Act. I know this is a particularly busy season with the truncated timeline. I understand that you'd prefer the Rental Act be moved independently from the BSA, but really want to emphasize how important it is that we move on the Rental Act and have these conversations to make progress towards reforming our housing market. I know you agree how important it is to make sure that changes are moved, but want to make sure that that's clear for the record, because I do not think our housing market can sustain delays when it comes to reforms needed. But thank you again very much to you and your team.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Pinto, and want to assure you we will get this Rental Act done before we go on recess. So more or less the same timeline as the budget. Councilmember Fruman.
Thank you very much, Chairman White. Many things have been said, so I won't go through all of those. I'm going to start with a couple of what I think of as white whales that aren't so much in this budget, but accomplishments in the last year. The idea that the rent registry is up and being populated. Thank you very much for staying on that and making that happen. I think you do more of this in the budget, but we're getting to where we have a clearer picture of what's happening inside of DCHA, which we did not have for some time, and I'm really grateful to you for all of the work that you've done on that. I think there's still a distance to go to really fully understand all the dynamics, but we're in a better position today than we were a couple of years ago. On downtown and office to housing conversion, that's that's a drum you've been beating for some time, and glad to see you expanding the parameters of that so it can be done in more places. That's another place where lots of us are talking about we need more housing, and that's part of the path to get there. I share your view. I hear Councilmember Nadeau on the Housing Protection Trust Fund, but I also think somewhere, somehow, we need to have a strong emphasis on preservation. We're losing too much affordable housing. Our buildings are old and they need repairs, and so many of our buildings are old, so support for that, either through the Housing Protection Trust Fund or you were able to keep the fund for that from lapsing. Thank you for accomplishing that in this budget. Also, you put some money in for acquisitions, which I think is another very important tool that's been underutilized so far. I was heartened to see the purchases of the buildings on Georgia Avenue, which creates an opportunity to add housing there and to have more affordability by this district leveraging its investment. The HPAP, such an important tool. Thank you again for investing in it and making it available. And again, also, like in the last year, we've had so many people asking questions about where does this stand? Why aren't I getting this? And now you're creating this dashboard, which I think is going to be something that is very, very helpful. And hallelujah on getting OTA to do its report on utility practices in multifamily buildings. I'll be very curious to hear what they have to say. A day doesn't go by where I don't get an email about this topic from one angle or another. So thank you for pushing that forward and look forward to supporting this report.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Fruman. And I will say, when I was at the landlord and tenant court earlier this week, it was surprising to see how many cases came up just because of utility as opposed to rent. So this is a place that we have to focus, and I'm glad we will do that. And I want to thank our committee members who have been active and thoughtful. So with that, I'd like to move the report and recommendations of the Committee on Housing on the fiscal year 2026 budget with leave for staff to make technical and conforming changes. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 And all opposed, please indicate by saying no. I believe we have a unanimous aye vote. The motion passes. Now, I did my thank yous before, so you all would not run away before we did our second quick resolution. The Committee on Housing staff appointment second resolution of 2025 would appoint Jaya Pillai as Legislative Director and Committee Director. Jaya comes to us most recently from HUD. Prior to that was in the Senate, and before that worked in the House. Christian Whisker, Deputy Legislative Director, we realized we needed a numbers person, and he came to us from Capital One, has just been amazing already, helping us understand aspects of our housing work and finance work that we didn't have the background to understand. Maurice Cates, who we legislative assistant, whom we stole from Congresswoman Norton, and we were glad to steal him. It's just been a tremendous energy brought to the committee team. And Jakayla Davis, legislative clerk, who we were lucky enough to steal from Minority Leader Jeffries, and it's just been so phenomenally thoughtful. And I hope that she will remember me well when I work for her. But I believe that our committee is and the council are lucky to have them. And so I want to move the, well, is there any discussion on the Committee on Housing staff appointment second resolution of 2025? Hearing none, I move the resolution. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
In the opinion, any opposed, please say no. I think we have unanimous aye vote. So in the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, the motion passes. I want to again say thank you to our staff, committee members, and the professional staff from the council. I think with that, the business before the committee is concluded. The time is 1:10 p.m. and we are adjourned.